Well, good day, folks. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Today I'm talking with a friend of mine. Might not be so serious all the time, but our country's at a serious point. We're on a precipice, but there are some ropes that are being led down, and there's some hope too. But we have to get involved. We have to make a difference. And one of the ways to do that is to get back to our roots. This country was founded on a divine, well, with divine providence, but of a belief in God. Those principles that are in the Constitution were preached from the pulpit beforehand. And so that idea, Christianity and the Constitution, I believe, are truly intertwined. They're not really separable. Later is where they always tried to find the divide between the two. I think that we were a good country, we were a moral country, and we set up a system that limited the rights of government and then divided the power of government. All of those things are powerful and important. Today I'm joined by a friend, somebody who went out 4 years ago and said, hey, we need to do something. So I'm with somebody that is a doer, Ted Laurent. Welcome.
Hello.
And what he did was he had this idea of, well, we need to have a revival. We need to get back to constitutional principles, and we need to get back to God. And I think that both of those elements are essential. The first time he just asked me to help out, and I gave him all these people's numbers, but he didn't ask me to actually do anything, which worked out real well for me. But round two, he was like, oh, no.
Right. Yeah. Oh, no.
No, you're stuck. So I'm on the committee for the Great American Freedom Revival, revivalusa.net. So, Ted.
Yes, sir.
I gave a little history, but I didn't give your perspective. Why did you do this? Why'd you start?
Well, the big reason I started is because I have grandchildren and I don't like the direction the nation's going and what I'm going to be leaving them on my watch. I have to answer to that. And so I don't want my grandkids to look back and go, yeah, my grandpa, my papa, he didn't get involved. He didn't do anything. Or they could say, oh, my papa, he stood up. He was a fighter and he opened his mouth. He shared from his heart. He taught. He preached. He was willing to sacrifice. You know, I want that to be a testament, to what we're doing.
So even if you don't care about politics, if you care about the next generation's future, you should be involved.
And that's how it started. Then you realize the importance of politics instead of separating from politics. So I like to put it this way. The political arena is the public forum for the moral debate. Mm-hmm. So, and Jesus is the ultimate authority on any moral argument.
When this country was founded, all of those cultural underpinnings, they were all based upon Christian values.
Yes. Morality and religion, as our founding fathers like to put it. In fact, George Washington said that if you are trying to undermine morality and religion, he wouldn't even call you a patriot because you're undermining the very pillars of our nation. Those are strong words that if he was here today, what would he be calling the entire Democratic Party and half the Republicans?
We might find out that the man had the ability to use four-letter words, would be my guess.
Which you didn't see in any of his writings, but it might come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and he was a warrior, obviously. So he would not only be saying something, but he would be leading a charge.
I think that when you look at what happened during the war, you look at the brilliance of how they divided government, how they made us a representative republic, how they limited government, how they were smart enough to go, wait a minute, well, everything that's not enumerated falls to the people or the states.
Right.
In other words, it was this system that allowed for a flourishing of freedom. But at the same time, it was almost like God's hand had to touch for it to succeed, because they took on the greatest naval power
Right.
that this world had ever seen.
Yeah, and won,
And won.
which they declare was the hand of God.
Hmm.
You know, if you read their own writings, and you go back to our original great American story, we discover that that's how the bulk of people thought, that wow, that God was really behind all this. It was a miracle to pen the Constitution. It was a miracle that we united these 13 individually minded colonies, because they all had different religious undertones. You know, where Baptists were maybe primarily in one state, and Quakers were in another, and we disagreed on a lot of things. We certainly had big disagreement on slavery, but
And it almost got defeated. It came within a couple of votes.
If I recall, it was one.
I thought it was two, but
Well, in essence, it would be two, because then one would have been a tiebreaker, and you would have needed another one. Yeah, that is how close. And then it was another 80 to 81 years before we finally overtook it. But that's the beauty of the Constitution, to take civil-minded people that didn't want to come to arms and throw blows. Let's hash this out. That's that political arena, discussing the moral debate. And slavery was definitely a big part of that. And they eventually hashed it out. And it also ended up requiring bloodshed, which was sad. But that's human nature. The fact that there was still a free country to recover from. Many other countries, you have a civil war like that, you're done. Your country never stands again.
Mm-hmm. It's renamed as something else.
Something else.
With different people in power.
Right. Yeah, and we managed to save that, and that was the hand of God too. Mm-hmm. So our history is so amazing, and we've just gotten away from it on purpose. That's actually an agenda.
Well, I don't know that it's on purpose for everybody. I think a lot of us, we've been so spoiled that we don't understand or appreciate the freedoms we have.
I agree, and I think that's on purpose too. If you come to it, but
from the media and from
right.
upper end people, I'm just talking about everyday people.
Everyday
people. I think they're living their lives, doing the best they can, and because life is good, it's easier to just let all of that discussion of politics and religion go,
right.
To not act, to not be civically engaged.
Mm-hmm.
But when they chose not to do that, then all of a sudden the politicians made all the choices, rather than it should be the people guiding the politicians. Because if we look at how our system's divided, all of the power starts with the individual and works its way up.
Yes, the way that was by design.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the way they penned the Constitution to have this system of checks and balances, accountability was their big thing, because they knew. In fact, they were inspired by, I think it's in Jeremiah, where he says, "The heart of man is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" So they knew that. They go, wow, when people get a taste of power, they can be corrupted. So we got to really have all this accountability. So, but as we've seen how people can end around that accountability, and they can undermine it and go, it's where we are now. But the system's design, I think, was well intentioned. In fact, was it John Adams that said our Constitution is strictly for a moral and religious people. Mm-hmm. And for the governance of any other, it's not going to work. So I know I butchered that quote, but
it was pretty darn close.
It was close enough to understand.
It's interesting to me that if people come here the right way, meaning immigrants, the first generation seems to be so thankful of all the opportunity, and they tend to be patriotic.
Right.
The left has decided that you're a racist if you're patriotic. How crazy is that? No country can stand if we don't raise people that are willing to fight for that country's values.
Yeah.
And they're trying to destroy that.
They are, and you're alluding to just the average everyday guy who's just trying to make a living, provide for his family. not get involved in that. He doesn't want that extra headache. And I get that because I was that guy for a long time. And then you realize you can't avoid it. You know, the fight's coming to you whether you like it or not. Just like I got friends that move out of California and they go to Texas.
Well, they bought time is all.
Yeah, that's all they're doing. No matter where you go, that the growing wokeness, that liberal, progressive, anti-cultural or countercultural movement is everywhere. It's around big cities where college campuses are. It's certainly following the young generation that's been exposed to it all throughout their public education. And so wherever you go, even if it's not in your face like it is in California, it will be at some point.
I find that a lot of people are like, well, it's too much effort. I'm just alone. My voice and my vote don't matter anyway.
Right.
And they've already set up a system, if they believe all those things, that they're going to fail because political decisions are going to happen, period.
They are. It's a shame that we've allowed the lie of the separation of church and state because it's infiltrated our culture, our Christian culture, to where many people who call themselves Christians and shuffle in and out of a church every Sunday and have an allegiance to God but won't do anything for the country. They won't vote. They won't get involved. Many of them aren't even registered. They're just like, yeah, I don't care. My vote doesn't count. And that's foolish.
Well, culture starts at a base level. Politics is downstream of that.
Yeah, it's always downstream because that's where the
But culture
flows.
starts with the individual.
Yes.
And so you need to get involved. You need to do better. We're going to have some incredible speakers.
Yes, we are.
That are coming to the Great American Freedom Revival. Last year, we had a couple pretty good people. Let's talk about last year, and then we'll jump into next year.
Sure. Well, last year, we certainly started off with Tim Barton of Wall Builders, who was amazing. And I would say started off because we had a minor speaker before that. And I don't remember whether that was Michael Marr or Kevin Cookingham.
I don't remember. They both spoke, but I don't remember what the order was.
Right. Luis Quintana, who is a pastor out of Selma.
He was solid.
Yep. He's
and Pastor
good.
Jesse woke us up.
Yes, he
out
did.
of Selma.
Pastor Jesse opened up a prayer, and it wasn't an elementary prayer.
No, it was not.
It wasn't a Lord, bless our time together.
No, it was fire and brimstone.
He was on fire. It was great. I loved it.
Now, all this happens in Clovis, California.
Correct. Well, at the Clovis Veterans Memorial District. It's hard to say with the real flow. You got to like, sorry. And we got the Liberty Ballroom, perfectly named. So it's a big ballroom, lots of room. We'll have lots of vendors like we did last year, selling gear, but also small groups, which is part of our movement. This is why we're doing this. We're bringing all the grassroots together to become one voice. So, the pro-life groups are there, the Moms for America, the Better Education, the Constitutionalists are there.
For Constitutionalists for California.
Yeah, that's a great group.
So for the people that are out of state that are listening, there is a movement in California, and if California is going to change, I believe that change starts in the middle of California, right in the heart of the Central Valley.
Right in the heart. Would that be called the Central Valley?
Or sometimes called the Bible Belt of California.
It is called the Bible Belt. But that's because God of the Bible is about to pull his belt out and take us behind the woodshed because we got to get our act together. And he loves us. He says he chastens those he loves. And we need some chastening.
Sadly, yes.
Sad, but that's not a bad thing. I spanked my kids when they were little, and I love them to pieces. So, in every piece that I spanked them into. And they're great kids. They're contributing well, and they're raising their own families.
Good.
And so that's what the Lord's looking for. Just submit to God. Start there. We'll have a reverence of God and turn this thing around. And I believe we're starting to see that. I'm seeing it in young people. I'm seeing it in religious groups, different denominations. I'm seeing it in colleges. Colleges that are these typical, woke, progressive safe havens are seeing Christians having massive gatherings, and they're baptizing people in pools, and it's awesome to see.
As if there's still hope.
As if there's still hope. You mean God's still working?
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah, yes, I know that's the case. That's why we're here.
Well, and
He's worked in you and me.
Mm-hmm. And part of it is the religious angle.
Yep.
Although I hesitate to use the word angle, but that is a huge aspect of it.
Right.
The other aspect of it is there are some people that are going to join us in that they're just for American freedoms.
Right. Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. But we'll take what we can get. We've allowed ourselves to drop into this pit.
We have. Well,
in California.
I liken it to trying to row a boat, and we're going against a strong current, and we need a lot of people on the oars. And if that boat is going to be traditional America, then I don't care which denomination you come from. I don't care if you're non-religious, but you love the country and you're willing to fight for it. You're willing to man an oar, then do so. Mm-hmm. And then and we'll work out our differences and be friends and love on one another through the process.
Well, we're supposed to, as Christians.
Yes.
Love the good things about people.
Yeah.
And then, frankly, love them even if they're infested with sin.
Like all of us have been. So, yeah, we can't throw stones at anybody. But I'm afraid that we've taken ourselves away from that. We pulled ourselves out of the political arena. We're not involved in the public affairs. We're not speaking up as a whole.
But I believe that COVID was, in a way, a great awakening.
It was. It showed us a lot of things. It showed us that we have a greater need for one another. We have a greater need to be self-reliant and not reliant on the government. And it also showed who real leaders were. Mm-hmm. It showed the failure of Christian leaders who complied, shut their doors, and went along with the program.
But not all of them. I recently went to Cornerstone Church, is one of the larger churches in the area. And they had Jack Hibbs from Chino Hills,
who was a fighter in
Southern California. And he wasn't there to preach. He was there to talk about churches getting involved in politics.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, he gave us ways to go about it, because I don't think you can choose Republican or Democrat from the pulpit, but you can have them come speak to you. You can discuss issues and how they relate to biblical values, and you can register people to vote. And in California, you can have ballot boxes at your church.
Yeah, and those are all things we should do. I would argue one point on that it was a Democrat that we got to wind that down.
Finish your point.
Well, it's a longer point than able to be finished right away. So trying to be on point here.
Okay, well, I shouldn't have expected you to be brief, because it's Ted.
That's right. So we have a break.
We'll have music in just a second, I'm pretty sure.
Just a second. There it is.
This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I would like to say to everybody that's watching this on social media, thank you. I do this because I believe in the message. I don't get paid. Don't really care if I get paid. It costs me some money, but it's enough money I can afford it. It's my hobby. My hobby is to try to get people more informed, get people more involved, get people more connected between church, government, politics. So, if you like this show, like, subscribe, comment, share. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, and I am joined by the chairman, the big cheese.
The big cheese.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I've listened to you speak. You're definitely cheesy.
Okay. As long as it's Swiss cheese, so I have some holiness about me.
It's definitely Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So you were the chairman for the Great American Freedom Revival. You can find out more about the Great American Freedom Revival, or if you want to sign up, if you want to donate, if you want to have a table, if you're a grassroots group, if you'd like to fly in an airplane.
That's right.
And we'll get to that. So welcome, Ted Laurent.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. We were on point?
We're on point.
So the point, you want me to go back to that point?
Yes, go back to that point.
Because we were in midpoint. So it was a Democrat, Lyndon Baines Johnson, that put an amendment out in 1954, was signed into being and accepted widely by churches across America. And it was allowing them a tax break that they really already had. So it was more along the lines of legal channels. It was supposed to alleviate any legal challenges coming to them. But to participate in this 501c3 for their church, they had to agree to rules because and Lyndon was popular to talk about this. He didn't like it when pastors were rebuking him for his whatever measure he was trying to bring forward. So
socialism of some sort.
Very much so. Yeah. But
and authoritarian control.
Very much. And that's across the board. We've seen that through every communist and socialist country. They silence the church because the church is trying to speak on morals and ethics, which is not the direction the politicians are going. So to quiet that and silence them, they throw them a bone. Here, you can have this privilege, but just leave me alone, basically. Now, that was 70 years ago.
So churches gave up a First Amendment right.
Correct.
For a little bit of money.
Yes. Has that ever happened in history?
Well, I would recommend somebody open a Bible, and I bet they could find something very similar to that.
Yeah, very similar. Right. Yeah, the love of money. Right. Yeah, there we go. But the good news is that because of all that's going on, churches are waking up, and they're realizing, no, I'm commanded to speak up. And the state can't tell me not to. And as we pointed out in last year's, because we were encroaching on it, this is the 70th year. And the biblical reference is when the Israelites were taken captive into Babylon. And the prophecy fulfillment is that they would be held captive for 70 years. And after that 70-year period, they would start coming back into the land. And then that was the whole Nehemiah project: rebuild the walls, rebuild the gates, restore civility and the nation of Israel. So I believe.
Wait, walls work?
Walls, yes, walls. Imagine that. In fact, he said, look at the distress that the people are in because the walls were broken down. So yeah, that preaches today too. But the good news is, this is the 70th year since that. And we're waking up and shaking that off. I believe we're going to find our backbone. We're going to find our voice again. And we're not going to be afraid of man or what they can do to us. We're going to be answering to God in our conscience as well as outwardly. So I think this is a turning point this year. I'm seeing it, and I'm going to keep calling it out.
I think this is the greatest opportunity of my lifetime to begin to get back to original principles.
Right.
The greatest chance to fix some of the problems, like the bureaucratic state that makes all the decisions rather than the actual politicians.
Right. Well, and it might be our last opportunity. If our generation doesn't take that stand and continue to hand that mantle to our kids, because remember, this younger generation, they're totally brainwashed.
Not all of them. There's some hopeful points.
No, you're right. I don't mean to broad brush that broad. But the public education is cranking out social-minded, communist ideology type of kids by the millions.
Agreed. And then I'm going to push back just a little bit.
No, please do.
Okay, so for about 35 years, there's this survey that goes out to high school students, high school seniors. And in the last 3 years, the numbers have dramatically shifted. Well, actually, now it would be 4 years. I don't think it's come out quite this year. And it interviews them on their politics. Are they conservative, very conservative, moderate, liberal, or very liberal? Those are your 5 choices. Well, the women, unfortunately, tend to be becoming more liberal. But on the other side of that, the young men, more than ever before in the history of this survey in the last 35 years, they're identifying themselves as conservative or very conservative. So there's a point of hope.
Yes.
Turning Point USA. Not particularly Christian, but they're not anti-Christian. They're just not specifically Christian, but they're totally freedom-based. They're growing like mad on high school and college campuses in California, in commie California.
Right. No, that and we're going to have representatives from Turning Point at our event. They'll have a vendor's table. I'm even hoping to have one of them pray at our event. I'm going to have 3 different spots where people are praying, because we're just really trying to emphasize the need for God's help. So we are looking to involve anyone that's active and hungry and rising to the challenge. So no. So your point is that there
are people pushing back.
There are people pushing back.
That it is shifting. It used to be that comedians would not make fun of anybody on the left. Remember that just 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's shifted.
That's shifted.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Culture starts with things that are like art, comedy, good movies. Sound of Freedom, huge hit.
Huge hit, right.
Am I a Racist? That's in movie theaters now. From the Daily Wire, that's Matt Walsh making fun of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, there is pushback. There are points of hope. You can either focus on the hope or you can focus on the negative. The truth is, there's both.
Yeah. Trying to, and I hear you, and I think it is important to keep pointing that out to people. And I'll take that even as a word of correction, because I've been so busy trying to show people the ugliness they've allowed and the reason to turn it back.
Well, that is one motivation, but if they don't believe there's hope, they have to have the other part of that.
I agree, and that's why we have to do the Great American Freedom Revival.
Now, who is it we have speaking at the Great American Freedom Revival this time?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We have Rick Green, who's a part of the Wall Builders organization, same as Tim Barton.
So what does Wall Builders do?
Wall Builders was established on the same premise that I mentioned earlier about the Nehemiah Project, rebuilding the walls, the restoration. And so they're getting back to our biblical foundation strictly by being one of the largest private collectors of original documentation of our founding fathers. Their books, their writings, their diaries, lots of literature and artifacts that all point to our true Christian heritage. And so they go around the country teaching that and expounding on it. And it's very amazing presentations like we saw with Tim Barton last year. And so Rick Green is a part of that, but he's also does what he calls the Patriot Academy, which is another one of those like Turning Point kind of great highlights, where he's getting young people and teaching them the Constitution, teaching them the biblical connection and how to live as biblical citizenship. So there's all these biblical citizenship classes that are taking place, and coaches are being recruited. So
he's training people to spread this message.
Yes. Yeah, and just so that people understand more fully where we come from, which is important, because then you have a better idea of where you're going. Which is back to our overall message of trying to bring truth through history, current events, and biblical prophecy. So the person that's going to really be able to present the current events side of it is Star Parker, who's been an outspoken spokesperson. Not sure if that's the right way to say that.
Isn't she from like Dallas, Texas?
Well, I know she's originally from L.A. area,
Okay.
and then I know she's moved.
Okay, and she works for her organization is.
I think it's called Cure.
There's Cure, but there's also something for urban renewal that she does too.
I thought
she is actively.
I think that's Cure, but I could be wrong. I should know my speaker better, but I know she's been speaking in public. She has radio shows. She's always being interviewed. She's been before Congress, so she's all over social media. You could pick her up, just about anywhere. So I just think she's going to bring a powerful anointing. She loves the Lord. She loves the country, and willing to stand up and speak for it. So I think the two of them are really going to bring a great 1-2 punch. So the only other thing we're going to do is, besides having a lot more time between speakers so people can stretch their legs and go meet the vendors and talk to people and fellowship with people.
Wait, so if somebody was interested, if they were willing to get here,
yes,
we'd sell them a ticket and they could come watch these speakers.
Yes.
That's the whole point of this.
That is the whole point. We want someone there. We're not just having a thing so we can film it. We want an audience. We want people to be there live, to take it in, to be inspired and encouraged, and then go meet other fellow Americans that are doing something.
Well, we're not alone.
No, we're not alone.
If you listen to the media,
right?
Okay, everybody, white supremacy is the number one problem, and we have to worry about them being terrorists.
Right.
Well, one of our main speakers, I don't think she's very white.
Yeah,
Not that I think the color of her skin much matters, but I don't think she's very white.
No, she's not. In fact, her earlier speaking career, as she came to Christ, she started to speak out against the Democratic Party for their stance on subjugating the black community, is the way she saw it. She was coming out of the welfare program. She's just a single mom trying to make it, and Christ was showing her, and she was just, wait a minute, the way you guys are trying to keep us enslaved, this takes me back to, the plantations.
Well, and
she speaks out.
And she spoke on abortion. Apparently she's had some.
Very much so. Well,
in addition to having some kids.
Yeah.
So she was really in a tough situation.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think she's happy about all the decisions she made, but the important thing is that she moved beyond it.
Right.
That she changed who she was and is now advocating for better, trying to make a difference.
Yeah, amen. And that, I would say, many of us, including myself, have made lots of bad choices, but that's the grace and mercy of God that we can testify of. And then once you overcome that and realize that He loves and forgives you, is now you can take that message of hope back out into the community. So that's preaching the gospel, but it's also taking a stand at a school board meeting, or at a city council chamber, or just in your neighborhood, but speaking up, and that's important. We can't be silent on small issues or big issues. We just can't.
Well, if we do, again, somebody will make the decision. Every time you choose not to speak, that means that those with the loudest voices, their voices become even louder.
Right. Well, I like the way Plato said it. Not that I was ever like a student of Plato, but you pick up on a statement sometimes, and he's accredited with this. And he said, the price good men pay for their indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Mm-hmm. And I would say, hello, California. Mm-hmm. Because California is amazing. It's easy to get indifferent to public affairs. I'm going to the beach. Mm-hmm. I got to work. I got kids to take care of. I got this to do and that to do. There's much to be distracted with. So during all that distraction and all that indifference to public affairs, guess who's now in charge?
Well, for the left, particularly the woke left, it seems to almost be their religion, whether it's a climate change religion,
right,
or it's an LGBTQ religion.
Right.
But it seems to be this false religion. So they're going to speak.
Yes.
It is guaranteed that they're going to speak.
Yeah.
And if they have their way, kids will get to decide why they do. Kids will get to decide whether they're transed in California, meaning whether they start hormones and whether they cut or add parts.
Right.
Kids aren't allowed to get a tattoo, but the woke left is absolutely advocating for this. So is one of the presidential candidates. Guess which one?
Well, it's not Trump.
Yeah, it's not Trump. It's that other one.
Right. Yeah. The cackle.
And the vice president, that her running mate, who decided that it was a good idea to have tampons in the boys' bathrooms, and he made it state law. And just like California, if you are from another state and your kid wants to be transed, again, a kid not old enough to make those decisions, Minnesota, just like California, is willing to steal them, both from the parents in state and from parents out of state.
Yeah.
I think there's a 4-letter word that starts with E and ends with L that describes that.
Yeah, well, this is another one of those reasons why we have to push back. We have to rise up. If we truly have a love for our neighbor and a love for humanity, so therefore a love of God. Because remember, he said, if you fed me, if you clothed me, it was because you were doing so to the least of these. So if our heart is in the right place and we're serving God with all our strength and all our might, then we're going to be trying to stand up for these kids, whether they're ours or not.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't even just have nice little radio shows. And pretty soon we're going to have to hook arms and do something like a Selma March. Where it's like, no, you can't have our kids anymore. Stop. Because it's nonsense. It's just like we were addressing the school board, trying to get them to, who's the adult in the room? How is this even an argument? It never should be a part of the debate. It's just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to keep rising up.
But it became a debate because we allowed for people that were not moral to be elected. And I believe that California has a huge number of politicians that aren't elected. We're currently sitting in the safest city in California that has a school that's reasonably good, not perfect, and a city council that is really pretty good. Again, not perfect, but pretty good. For California, pretty good is like an A. Might not be for the whole country, but
yeah, well, we still have our work cut out for us, but like you're seeing, and you get to talk to a lot of people, because we're seeing people stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to run for office.
Mm-hmm.
That they're quality people. And they might not win first time or even second time, but they're staying at it. And we're seeing more of them. So I think that's a very positive thing when we have righteous men and women beginning to take a position in politics.
I believe it's truly needed.
Yes.
And there are some local candidates that, frankly, I'm excited about. Some of them are first-time candidates. Some of them are second-time candidates.
Mm-hmm.
As they go out and they speak to people, they begin to change the bench. They change who we are. They begin to shift culture.
Mm-hmm.
Just by knocking doors and talking to your neighbors, making those connections, making sure that everybody realizes that we're not actually separate, that for the most part, we share this incredible humanity. Let's go ahead and take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. In the final segment, I like to focus on hope.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to give contact information when we first come back, and then let's give contact information as we go out.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. So give contact information if they want to know more about this, if they want to sign up for it. I guess we're telling them more about it, but if they want to sign up.
Well, either way, if you want to learn more about it or you want to sign up, or both, you can go to revivalusa.net. www.revivalusa.net. And all the information is there. And you can find that there's an email address on there that more specific questions can be sent. And that's fairly simple. That's revivalusanow@yahoo.com. So that's an easy way to do it.
That makes sense that a Yahoo would somehow be involved in this.
Yes, well, Yahoo was the easy one to get into, and you're there, and it's like, well, okay.
There's an opportunity to do something fun, even if, let's say, you were tied up and you couldn't go to the revival. Here's a way to have some fun and help out. Tell us about the airplane ride.
The airplane ride. The classic World War II era, the AT-6. It was a trainer. It was the plane that every pilot flew in. And I would assess that because of that training and the quality of the training plane, that really helped us become the best fighting flyers in history. We had great pilots and a great training program, and this plane was a big part of that. It's a two-seater because you have to have a trainer. The pilot's training you. So that's what makes it beautiful for this flight opportunity. So for a small donation that goes entirely to the Great American Freedom Revival, you can get 20 minutes of flight over the great San Joaquin Valley.
I wouldn't say it's a small donation, but I'd say there's a lot of value there for the money.
Okay, I was trying to be ultra positive, but it's $1,000, but it's 20 minutes of flight in a World War II plane. So it's one of the ways that it's also approached is a business owner has a loyal employee that they just want to show, some appreciation for, which would then be a write-off for them. And they put $1,000 towards this flight, and their loyal employee gets the experience of a lifetime. And then that money also comes and helps support what we're doing to bring Star Parker and Rick Green and the like, to our valley.
Well, just our venue is like $7,000.
Yeah,
just the venue.
Yeah,
not the speakers.
Right. Just that. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of money involved, and none of us are deep pockets. In fact, we could all be called shallow pockets, I'm sure. Maybe some of us are no pockets. But we're just people. We're just trying to make a difference. We're trying to speak up and find ways to do that. How do I make my voice bigger? I can come to the Constitutionalist for California radio show. That helps. Or I can go to meetings and speak there. And we can also have a big event that we can draw people from all over the valley. Last year we had people from Sacramento, from Bakersfield, from the Bay Area, from all over.
Well, courage is contagious.
Yes.
And
hallelujah.
Getting together with like-minded people, I think, energizes us.
Right. That's the big encouragement to me. Come, be encouraged, be energized, be enlightened, because there's always something, no matter how smart you are, no matter how knowledgeable you are in the Bible or the Constitution or just in great common sense, you're going to come to this event and you're going to walk away learning something. You're going to be blessed. You're going to be encouraged. You'll be strengthened, hopefully fired up, because it's hard not to be. And wouldn't you know it, there's 20 vendors all around the room that you could even join up and be a part of.
Right, and we say vendors, but they're not necessarily selling anything. Most
True.
of them are going to be there selling ideas.
Yep, most of them are
trying to get
groups.
you involved.
Yep, like Moms for America. And
Dawn Wells.
Dawn Wells is amazing, and what she's trying to do. There's other groups like that. They're just their own nonprofit kind of organization, just trying to find their niche, their passion, and how they can make some noise and educate people, stir the hearts of people. And so when I say vendors, that's really what I'm talking about.
Right. There'll be some great people for education. Right. There'll be some people for medical freedom. It doesn't matter what your issue is.
Right.
Here's an opportunity to connect with, if you're from the area, a local group. If you're not from the area, here's a chance to come out. California's weather's amazing.
Right.
You could maybe see Yosemite and stop by the Freedom Revival They're not very far apart.
No, yeah, hour
You
and
can
a half.
be you can be to the valley floor with normal traffic in 2.
Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, that's right. The valley floor is
The valley floor is the key place. Just entering the park is okay.
Yeah, you
but
can get there in an hour and a half, but it's going to take you another half an hour to get you to the valley floor.
Yeah.
Good point. So,
well, we're down to about just a little less than 4 minutes.
okay.
Again, it's revivalusa.net.
Yes.
Great American Freedom Revival, October 19th.
October 19th, it's 1 to 5. So it's right in the middle of the day. So, but air conditioning, it's a beautiful
Probably
hall.
won't need it in October.
Might not, but it's a beautiful hall anyways. It really is. It's comfortable, lots of restrooms. We'll have snacks and foods and great speakers.
Show up at 11:30.
Yeah.
There's lots of local places that have really good food.
Lots.
You
Yeah.
get a good lunch. You come over to the Freedom Revival. You get energized and motivated.
Yeah. Or if you want to come from out of town, the hotel literally across the street, the Best Western Clovis Cole. So that makes it perfect, and they're inexpensive. So that's a good place to go. You walk across the street. It's right there. So
And Clovis is a nice little town,
Clovis is a nice town. Yeah,
especially the old town part of it.
I hear there's a lot of antique stores around there.
There's antique stores, there's little boutiques, and there's good places to eat.
Lots of good places to eat. Right. I agree. We have a beautiful town. I think we have Clovis Fest coming up, right, where the balloons are going up. There's a lot of history, a lot of great traditions that Clovis does. Now we're going to also bring revival as a tradition here, as we're stirring the hearts of people so that the Central Valley, which feeds the world physically, is also going to feed the world spiritually.
That seems quite appropriate.
I agree.
Well, we're down to about 2 minutes. Final thoughts.
Wow, all that was in 2 minutes? Whew. Well, the final thought is I want to go back to the way I started, because I think it's important to regroup and get our priorities right, is that the political arena is the public forum for the moral debate. We can't remove ourselves from that. We're supposed to be a part of that. In fact, we were given this great country with great riches, natural resources, untold liberties and freedom because of our Constitution. This was a gift. And like as in the parable of the person that was given a gift, what have you done with it? We're going to have to answer to the Lord. What have you done with the gift I've given you? If you take yourselves out of the political arena, you will have no answer. You will say nothing. I buried it. Here's your gift back. And if you're familiar with that parable, it doesn't end well. So I would encourage people to open their eyes and their heart and see where the priority is and get involved.
Well, I truly hope that happens. I'm on every week encouraging people to get started.
Yeah.
They see this huge elephant in the room. I choose elephant because they're big, but, I'm generally on the Republican side. But if you want to change the world, it's not that you got to eat the whole elephant.
Right.
You take it one bite at a time.
And share. Here, you have a bite. There's plenty to go around.
There's plenty to go around. There's plenty to do.